Chapter 5 is the one that I thought I would get in the most trouble for writing, you know. So, and it's called, "Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them." And I thought that would be contentious, first of all, because people would think, well, I never dislike my children. It's like, really? 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 You know, you're going to really tell me that? God! I've seen families where it's like this. It's like the family members are standing in a circle, let's say, and each of them has their hands around each other's neck. And they're squeezing hard enough to strangle the other person in 20 years. And that's the family. It's like, and you know, if you haven't met a family like that, or well, then you're not paying attention, and there's some reasonable possibility that you're actually in a family like that. So, anyways, back to children. So one of the things, you know, you have a natural affinity for children, and even more, maybe a more powerful natural affinity for your own children. So that's a good start. But you don't want to set them up as an enemy against you. You don't want to allow them to engage in the kind of hierarchical challenge that makes you irritable and resentful. That's not a good idea. And if the things they do make you dislike them, the probability that they will make other people dislike them is extraordinarily high. And so you can consult your own irritability. And you can say, look, kid, I used to tell my kids this, you know, when they were 3 or 4. I'd say, look, I'm not in a very good mood. And I'm likely to be unreasonable, so it'd be best if you'd go in your room and play for a while. It's like, I like you, man, you're a great kid, but like, get the hell out of here for a while. You know, and they were fine with that. We'd trained them already at that point to be able to go play by themselves in their room, you know, which is something a kid should be able to do anyways. But so, and then the other thing about that chapter is there's an idea in it, and it's an idea that I think is well supported by the relevant literature, which is that your fundamental job as a parent, especially of a child from 0 to 4, is to make that child eminently desirable socially. A well-socialized kid, if you know anything about kids, is you can take a 4-year-old and make a little play gesture at them, and they'll smile right away and start playing, just right now. And that's what you want for your kids. And then everywhere they go, other kids like them and will include them in their play, and play is the way that children develop. And so if other children include them in their play, then the children develop.
Rule number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them, is well taken, and I almost have nothing to add. I mean, you have to develop your children, and everything he says about children I agree with. That's Dr. Peterson. He's very good. However, I would apply it in a broader sense, and that is that what about not children? There's adults, older people, not just little children, that need criticism, they need direction. And Jewish teaching says to help each other in that way with criticism. Now that may seem counterintuitive to you because people don't like to be criticized. And the truth of the matter is that if someone offends you or bothers you, and you can forgive it or ignore it and just let it go, then that's of course the best course to take. Don't let it bother you. Don't let it affect you. However, there are, as you know, many instances where something happens that does offend us. Then the Torah instructs us that we have a duty to let the other person know that they are bothering us, and to do it in a manner that's, you know, trying to resolve it, helpful. Do you realize that you know, this is irksome for this and this reason? Even if it comes to a little even anger in one's voice, but by giving the feedback, then there's a possibility of correcting the situation. Just to let a kid continue going is not helpful. So they're not going to know, they're not going to stop until you let them know. So it's in the end positive, and the same thing with children. The third level of behavior that deserves criticism is not when it's irksome to you, but when you see that the behavior is detrimental to the person doing it. They're misbehaving, behaving in a bad way that's not good for them. It could be in a criminal way, or it could be just not criminal, but distance them from friends. It's socially awkward. It's not acceptable. Those kinds of things. So then you have a duty to criticize them, to help them reform their ways, to make them a better person. And in this case, since the whole goal is to help them improve themselves, not because they're aggravating you, but because you see it's bad for them. So then you have to, here you don't yell at them or get angry at them, but you behave very diplomatically. You take them on the side quietly, not publicly, and you explain, look, I'm just trying to help you here, but you realize that this affects you so badly, and they'll see that somebody's trying to help them. You're doing it in such a way that to convince them that you're just there to help them. You just got their best interest in mind. Your whole demeanor, the whole approach you have with them is not to embarrass them, not to be their boss, but to just simply, truthfully, helpfully help them, honestly help them. In most cases, they will respond. Even if they don't improve, but they'll understand that you're really sincere about trying to help them. And even if it doesn't work right away, it'll make an impression. And eventually, they'll get the gumption or the resolve to do something about it. But it needs you to help them start. There is, though, a case where someone's bad behavior is going to establishes a precedent for other people and draws other people into the same bad behavior. And in that case, you can't really afford to take them on the side and work with them privately to get them to improve their behavior, because they're having such an immediate and obvious bad influence on others. And in this case, you have to publicly oppose them and use whatever resources you have to get them to stop, and which publicly embarrassing them is a tremendous resource. People do not like to be publicly embarrassed, and they may fight you on that, but you have to stand your ground. You have a duty. You have a duty to protect the others that are badly influenced. You have a duty to help this guy stop it. We have to take responsibility for those in our society that go wayward, and say, stop it. It's not right. And the same applies to children. When children do get like that and are influencing other children, as Jordan Peterson says, making you their enemy, that's no good for them. And so in those cases, you have to use whatever force you have. And up to a certain age, children will understand, like a slap on the wrist, basically, or on the behind, just tells them quickly and pretty plainlessly that that's a wrong behavior, not acceptable, and to stop it. And the pain goes away right away. And they don't learn to hit other people from this. They learn that was wrong and to stop it. And it can be very powerful, and it sets you up as the authority, so that later on, when you will give them a stern rebuke for behavior, and you're not going to use force, but you'll have that relationship with them that you know better, and they ought to give serious consideration to what you're saying. So it works for a long time afterwards. I hope you don't have to try it, but when you do, that's Jewish teachings on the subject. Very important, very useful, and very effective.